Is the Justin Fields-Caleb Williams debate pointless? One Chicago Bears insider believes so, and we'll tell you why he thinks that way in just a moment. Also, are the Bears evaluating all draft-eligible quarterbacks? And is a new favorite for Justin Fields emerging if he does hit the trade market? And are the Raiders in the mix despite hiring Luke Getsy? Lots to discuss around Justin Fields and the quarterback decision. I'm Harrison Graham. Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. Before we get into today's video, let's be honest. I agree with Justin Fields and what he said on the St. Brown Brothers podcast. I'm just ready for this decision to be made. One way or the other, can it end? Make it end. Like the video if you're ready for this QB decision to be made. Luckily, the Combine is next week, and we should have an answer pretty soon. All right, let's get into today's show. Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, is the debate pointless? Well, Brad Biggs says it is, and the reason he says it is because there are no internal discussions, per him, around keeping Fields in Chicago. Like, those discussions aren't taking place at Halas Hall, he says. This is what he had to say. From my perspective, there is no internal debate in which the Bears are kicking around the idea of keeping Justin Fields versus drafting a quarterback. I believe the work being done is to determine which QB they should select, so the whole Fields versus Caleb Williams debate is a pointless exercise. Now, I will challenge Brad Biggs this. What does from my perspective mean? Now, the average person, you could say, well, that's just his opinion. However, Brad Biggs, out of everybody on the beat in Chicago, is the most tapped in historically. So I don't think he's just throwing his opinion. He could have used better words, but when I hear him say, from my perspective, I think he's basing that on information he's hearing, hence his perspective. I don't think he literally means me, myself, Brad Biggs' opinion. At least that's how I'm reading it. That's how I'm hearing it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's given his opinion on this situation, but Biggs typically doesn't throw out stuff out there without some sourcing on it. And look, if that is the case, let's just call a spade a spade. If that is how Biggs is reporting it, writing it, etc., he's basically saying it's over for Justin Fields in Chicago. He's saying it without saying it, right? Even though he kind of did say it, not to kind of repeat words there. And if that's the case, again, I do think there's going to be a market. I do think there are teams that are going to be interested. I think the top two make the most sense, talking about Pittsburgh and Atlanta. But maybe there's a scenario where Washington or New England, sitting at 2 or 3, doesn't want a QB there and decides to trade a second-round pick for Justin Fields instead. And maybe Sean Payton gets into the mix and Denver wants to get him. We'll talk about the Raiders like we teased off the top in a second. I still find that pretty unlikely, but there is a new report. It's interesting. Is the debate pointless? I wouldn't call it pointless, but look, I do think, and I have thought for a while, that they are heavily leaning in one direction versus the other. And if I had to guess, that direction is likely drafting a quarterback, with Caleb Williams being the favorite. So do you think the Bears have already moved on from Justin Fields? Type Y for yes, or you can type in for no. Again, I kind of jumped ahead here, but I do think they're leaning that way. I can't say it's final because there's a scenario where they get to the Combine and they don't like what they see out of these prospects. They don't like what they hear when they talk to Caleb Williams. Now, if what Biggs is saying in terms of the decision and the debate is between which quarterback in the draft they're taking, then, well, what are the chances that 3 or 4 of these guys, they dislike all of them? Probably pretty slim, right? Now, if it's just Caleb, then sure, could there be a scenario where they sit down with him, they have dinner with him, whatever, and they just are not a fan of the person? That could be a possibility. I'm not saying it is or isn't. We don't know yet because the Combine hasn't come and gone. But make no mistake, regardless of if Justin Fields is still in the picture or not, the Bears are doing their homework on these quarterbacks. They're doing their due diligence. They're calling coaches of theirs, people around them, relatives, getting as much information as possible. I mean, I didn't even realize this till a couple of years ago when someone connected to the NFL told me this. These teams literally hire private investigators to look into these players. I mean, they leave no stone unturned when evaluating these guys, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. So, yeah, again, is it 100% final that Justin Fields is going to get traded? No. Is it probably leaning that way? I think so. I do think that is the pulse I am getting, and I just feel based on being a few days away from the combine, based on that Albert Breer report, oh, they're going to have a QB plan finalized by the combine. We'll see. Could things change? Is it final? No. Is it close? I do think it's probably pretty close to the direction of, yeah, we're going to draft the quarterback here. All right, more to get to here on today's show, but I do want to tell you guys first about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Daily fantasy made easy. Just because football season is over doesn't mean that there isn't money to be made with Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100. You can play college basketball Prize Picks, NBA, you can crossover sports, MLB's around the corner, UFC, and a whole lot more. Daily specials, discounts, largest DFS app in North America. Link is in the comments and in the description. Get going with Prize Picks today at prizepicks.com/CLNS. The code CLNS, again, gets you that deposit match up to $100. Trust me, you are not going to want to pass on this. All right, let's talk about teams that Justin Fields could go to if he does get traded and move on from the debate. Is he in the mix in Chicago still? Is he not? Time will tell. We'll continue to cover those reports, obviously. The Atlanta Falcons, are they in the mix? Could they even be the new favorite for Justin Fields if he gets moved? Well, there is a recent report from Jordan Schultz that the Falcons are very much in play. Here's what Schultz had to say via CBS Sports during one of their shows this week. He said, there is absolutely a building buzz in the NFL that the Falcons would be in play for Justin Fields. It's my understanding at this point that Fields probably commands a late first-round pick, which if that's true, that's pretty juicy for the Bears. I'll believe that when I see it. But you look at Atlanta, the connections have been there. He's from there. He talked about them on the St. Brothers podcast, about, going home, some of their pieces, stuff like that. The Falcons have 9 picks. You're not getting their first-round pick. So when you think, okay, let's say it does add up to a late first-round pick, well, I think you're probably centering any trade around pick 43, right? That's, top 45 pick, first 10 picks, 12 picks of the second round. The number 8 pick is not happening unless it's like, some kind of swap where, you get 8, but you send them, a second next year or something like that. I don't think that's going to happen. So, you get the number 43 pick, maybe you get a 4 and a future 5 or something like that. Maybe that adds up to that late round 1 value or whatever the case may be. And look, a trade around the 43rd pick, if you decide to move on, that's not bad if you're the Bears, if we're being completely honest. Now, some recent betting odds have emerged as well, suggesting the Falcons are the new favorite. Now, I always tell you guys to proceed with caution. Player team odds and stuff like that is like, it's a way for Vegas to keep building casinos. Like, they're just changing this stuff to get people to bite all the time. Now, the Falcons and Steelers have been pretty consistently at the top of this, and I do think that makes sense. I think those are the two teams that make the most sense. But I think if you want to take a more interesting note of those betting odds, is now that the Bears have dropped to plus 650. That's a fairly steep decline from where they were even just a few days ago. So, again, we'll see what happens here. I think Atlanta, there's logic there. I mean, you could see it, right? Like, he grew up watching Michael Vick in that stadium. Like, there's parallels there in terms of, them wanting to bring in an exciting quarterback, something they have not had in a few years. But, does he fit Zach Robinson? Is that what they want? We'll have to wait and see. I've talked about Pittsburgh. I think they make sense as well. Speaking of the St. Brothers podcast, I referenced that earlier in the show. Justin Fields joined that show. I had 4 main takeaways from that. So if you want to go watch that video I put out, go check it out right now. Subscribe. Go to the video content tab. It's right there. This is the thumbnail you see. And once you see the St. Brown Bros, you know that is that video. So go check it out right now by subscribing. Okay, let's get to the Raiders now because – look, I'll be honest, I completely dismissed the Raiders as a fit for Fields once they hired Luke Getsy. I'm still there for the most part, but a new report has dropped that the Raiders might be interested after all, so I'll entertain it here on today's show. Tony Pauline, who's had some scoops in the past, not sure if he's had any big ones recently, but he said there's another team that I'm told has genuine interest in acquiring Fields and will explore a trade for him. the Las Vegas Raiders. Sources tell me Tom Telesco, who's their new GM, and as of January 23rd, wants a big name at the quarterback position. The fact that the organization signed former Bears offensive coordinator Luke Getsy will make the transition easier for Fields. Now, I think that part of it is where you pause a little bit. Now, is the transition easier from the sense of, well, he knows Luke, he knows the offense, even if they didn't have even if they didn't mesh in terms of like how they wanted to use Fields, did they have a decent relationship? It seemed like they did. It seemed like they got along. But again, I think behind closed doors, both Luke Getsy and Justin Fields would say, yeah, that's not the type of quarterback I want, play style wise, and from Fields' standpoint. Yeah, I don't think he utilized me properly. Like, they wouldn't go public saying that necessarily, but I do think behind closed doors they would say that. So that does make me seriously doubt Getsy Fields 2.0 in Vegas. Now, is he an elevation over Aiden O'Connell? Absolutely. Are the Raiders in a position where they may not be able to get a quarterback with the 13th pick or move up to the range to get someone? Yeah, that could be true as well. So, sure, like, in theory, Fields to Vegas makes sense, but I just don't see the Getsy reunion happening. Like, that would just be shocking to me for the Raiders to go that route, if I'm being completely honest. So, I won't completely dismiss it. You see the odds there. The Raiders are lurking, but, I mean, they're behind Denver. I mean, Washington. I don't know, man. I don't see Luke Getsy and Justin Fields reteaming back up. And is Getsy going to advocate for Fields to come to Antonio Pierce and Telesco? I don't know about that one either. So we'll see what happens. I do think there will be a market. I just don't think the Raiders are a great fit. Who do you think is the better fit, the Raiders or the Falcons? I think it's clearly the Falcons. I think him and Bijan in the same backfield could be pretty electric. He's tight with Kyle Pitts. They're good buddies. So I definitely think that would be the better fit. But maybe you think it's the Raiders, and if you do, go ahead and type R. All right, guys, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, like this video if you're exhausted about the quarterback debate discussion. Like, I just want an answer, and then we can press forward and talk about other things as well. But, of course, as reports come in, as rumors drop, we're going to discuss them. So keep it locked in here to Chicago Bears Now. Hit that like button. We'll see you soon.